There's a clip going around right now that shows a thin wire buried in a pot of soil and a barley plant beside it, standing taller than every plant around it. The caption says, "The science behind it is forbidden," that a laboratory in Sweden discovered something in 2026 that the fertilizer industry does not want you to see. I need to be honest with you before we go one sentence further. That framing is false. Nothing here is forbidden, and the year is wrong, and no one is hiding it. But here's the part that surprised me. The real story underneath that clip is true, and it is stranger than the lie built on top of it. There really is a Swedish laboratory. There really is barley that grew dramatically larger when electricity reached its roots, and the results were published openly for anyone to read in one of the most respected scientific journals in the world. So today I am not going to sell you a conspiracy. I am going to walk you through what actually happened, what it means for the soil under your own feet, and where the honest limits of this idea really are. If you garden, if you grow food, if you have ever pushed a seed into the ground and wondered what is really happening down there, stay with me. And if you find this useful, the simplest thing you can do is subscribe to this channel, because this is the kind of buried knowledge we dig up here every single week. Let me take you to the laboratory. The work comes from Linköping University in Sweden. A material scientist named Eleni Stavrinidou and her colleagues wanted to answer a very old question with very new tools. The question is this: can you make a plant grow faster by feeding a small electric current directly to its roots? This is not a new dream. A German botanist named Julius von Sachs noticed something similar more than 150 years ago. He saw that a weak current passed through the growing medium of a seedling could pull its roots toward the negative side of the circuit. For a century and a half, the idea drifted in and out of fashion. Sometimes the plants grew faster, sometimes nothing happened at all. The results never settled, and so the mainstream moved on to chemical fertilizer instead. What the Swedish team built was different. They did not just run a wire into ordinary dirt. They created an entirely new growing material, and they called it electronic soil. Imagine a soft, sponge-like scaffold made mostly from cellulose, the same fiber that gives plants their structure. Woven through that scaffold is a conductive material that lets a gentle electric signal travel through the whole root zone. The plant sits inside it the way a seedling sits in any potting mix. The difference is that this soil can be switched on. Now here is exactly what they did, step by step, because the details matter. They took barley seedlings and let them germinate inside this electronic soil. After the seedlings were 5 days old, the scientists split them into two groups. One group received a low-power electric stimulation through the soil for the next 5 days. The other group sat in the very same material with no current at all. Then they waited and they measured. Before I tell you the result, I want to stop for 1 minute because this is the part of the video where I have to be fair to you. A lot of channels would freeze the screen right here and tell you to buy something to learn the ending. I am not going to do that. The result is free, and I'm about to say it out loud. What I have built for you, separately, is a written reference guide for people who want to actually try root zone stimulation safely in their own setup. It is called the Living Current Guide, and it gathers the real published studies in one place, in plain language, with the parts that are still uncertain marked clearly as uncertain. There are 3 specific things inside it that I deliberately will not explain in this video, because they are the practical core, and they need written diagrams to do right. The first is the safe voltage and current window that the published trials actually used, and why going higher does the opposite of what you want. The second is the exact electrode placement and material that avoids poisoning your own root zone over time. The third is the timing protocol, meaning when to switch the current on and, just as importantly, when to switch it off. If that is useful to you, the guide link is pinned in the top comment and sitting in the description below. If it is not for you, that is completely fine, because the science itself stays right here in this video for free. Now, the result. On day 15, the barley that had received the electric stimulation had grown noticeably larger than the barley that had not. The roots and shoots of the stimulated plants were about 7 centimeters longer. The stimulated plants weighed roughly 37 milligrams more. Measured as biomass, the increase was close to 50%. That is a large effect, and Stavrinidou herself said the team did not expect to see something that big. At first, she wondered if the plants were simply stretched out, longer but not heavier. But the analysis showed real added mass, not just extra length. So something genuine happened. The next obvious question is the most important one: why? And this is where the honest answer is more interesting than any conspiracy. When the team looked inside the plant tissue, they found something specific. The electrically stimulated plants contained fewer nitrate ions than the plants left unpowered. Nitrate is the form of nitrogen that plants pull from the soil and then have to convert into usable building blocks. That conversion step is one of the great bottlenecks of plant growth. The researchers think the electricity may have helped the plant push nitrate through that bottleneck faster, turning it into the organic compounds the plant is actually made of. In plain words, The current may not have added anything to the plant. It may simply have helped the plant use what was already there more efficiently. That single idea is why this matters for the future of food. If a tiny amount of electricity can help a crop make better use of the nitrogen it already has, then in principle, you could grow more while leaning less on heavy fertilizer. And that is the real reason this research is exciting, with no villain required. But now I have to put up the guardrails, because this is where the internet gets dishonest. The Swedish study was done in a controlled laboratory with one crop, barley, grown in a specially engineered material. It was not a field of wheat in open ground. It ran for 15 days, not a full season to harvest. A soil scientist who reviewed the work, Timrat Gezahai, asked the exact questions you should be asking too. Can this boost survive all the way to a mature plant that actually produces grain? What happens to the power demand when you scale from a pot to an acre? And is that even worth the energy it costs? Those questions do not have answers yet, and anyone who tells you they do is selling you something. Now compare that careful, real science to the other thing you see online. People sticking a bare copper rod into a garden bed and calling it electroculture. That version was actually tested in a peer-reviewed study published just last year. Researchers planted container vegetables with copper rods in the soil, exactly the way the social media videos show. The result was clear. The passive copper rods did not improve yield at all. So please hold both of these truths at the same time. A powered, carefully engineered electronic soil produced a real measured effect in a laboratory. A bare copper wire stuck in your tomato pot did not. They are not the same thing, even though the same online clips blur them together on purpose. This is exactly why I made the written guide the way I did. It separates the published evidence from the wishful thinking, line by line, so you are never guessing which is which. And it is honest about the single most important fact, which is that this is early research, not a finished product you can buy at the garden center yet. So let me leave you with the real takeaway, the one worth remembering long after the clickbait is forgotten. Electricity and plant life are connected in ways we are only beginning to measure. The Swedish electronic soil study is a genuine, open, peer-reviewed glimpse of that connection. It is not forbidden, it is not hidden, and it is not magic. It is something better. It is a real question that real scientists are still working to answer, out in the open, where you're allowed to follow along. If you want the published studies gathered in one plain language place, with the 3 practical protocols I mentioned, the link is in the pinned comment in the description. And if you would rather just keep learning the real history behind the myths, then do the one thing that helps this channel the most. Subscribe, so the next piece of buried knowledge finds its way to you. I will see you in the next one.